This program is made possible in part thanks to generous donations from viewers like you.
Hello and welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, a progress report on Sarasota's largest, most impactful public park initiative ever, the Downtown Bay Park. 53 acres of waterfront property that is currently in Phase 1 of a historic development plan. We first brought you this story back in 2019 when ground was about to be broken. In the roaring 1920s, Sarasota was enjoying a major land and building development boom. Seen here on this vintage map, the area along the Back Bay was then called Central Broadway. The old Belhaven Hotel was the jewel of the district. A wealthy Atlanta real estate developer named George Adair bought the property as part of an ambitious plan to build a newer, bigger Adair Hotel. Unfortunately for George, the stock market crashed and the Great Depression set in. By the 1930s, his failure to pay property taxes allowed the City of Sarasota to buy the bayfront tract for a whopping price of $15,000. And that is the story of how we, the people, became owners. For the last 100 years, our investment has pretty much been wasted. Most of the property is a parking lot, likely the most valuable parking lot in the state, if not the nation. But now, that is beginning to change. On Monday, April 15th, 2019, Sarasota City Commissioners unanimously voted to approve the Bay Park Conservancy Agreement. The master plan provided a long-term blueprint for the development of the entire 52 acres. Phase 1 is well underway and includes 10 acres between the Van Wezel and the Boulevard of the Arts. The Mangrove Walk is open. It meanders through the grove and around the bayou, which has been dredged and environmentally restored. There is a new kayak and motorless small craft launch on the bayou that is also open to the public. A concession building, restrooms, and shaded seating area is under construction right now. And the most impressive item in Phase 1 may be the Sunset Boardwalk that extends in a circle from the shore out over the bay and back. Future phases envision a performing arts center on the north end of the park near the current 10th Street boat ramp. Separately, but working closely with the Conservancy, the city and the Van Wezel Foundation have authority over the future of the Van Wezel and proposed Performing Arts Center. In short, this is a very, very big deal for the future of our community. It is inspirational, it is expensive, it is complex, and yes, it is happening. For details on the vision, funding, and costs, we turn to the founding CEO of the Bay Park Conservancy, Mr. A.G. Lafley. A.G., welcome. It's great to see you.
Great to be back.
Absolutely. I think it was September of 2019, if I'm right, that we did the last show on the Bay Park. So what I want to begin with is fundraising and expenses.
Some things haven't changed and some things have, okay? What hasn't changed is we still believe our long-term estimate for transforming all 53 acres into public park is $100 to $150 million, which is $2 million to $3 million an acre, which is about in the middle of what it costs to build a public park in America today. Second point, we're obviously undergoing a fair amount of inflation. So I believe our original estimate for Phase 1 that was in the approved master plan was $15 million to $23 million. That was the range. And we had a high-end range of $22 to $33 million. Right now, it looks like we're going to end up spending about $5 million on the Mangrove Bayou, which is almost done. I believe the current SWIFT construction contract with Bill for implementation of all of the Phase 1 upland is for another 17 to 18 million. So if we take 5 million plus 18 million, that's 23 million. Now, the piece that's not done, because it's being reviewed by the Army Corps of Engineers, is the Sunset Boardwalk. And frankly, we're not going to know what that's going to cost until we get the final design and plan approved by the Army Corps, which could be 18 to 24 months. So 100 to 150 for the whole park, at least 23 for the first 10 acres that'll be open next summer. Still a question mark around the Sunset Boardwalk. One thing is, how much will everything cost? The other is, how have we raised the money to pay for it? Because we committed from the beginning that we would have the cash or commitments in hand before we proceeded. And I'm happy to report that we in fact do. We have about $37 million in cash in the bank raised so far. We have a challenge from the Patterson Foundation for 24 million. Every 5 million we raise, they match with $1 million. 37 plus 24 is 51 million. And we have grants outstanding for another 13 to 14 million, which would take us up to a potential of 65 million that we could raise over the next 2 or 3 years. So 37 million in the bank now, more than enough to pay for the 23 million in Phase 1, and hopefully most of the Sunset Boardwalk. Very real potential to raise another 24 plus 14, 38 million over the next 2 or 3 years. So we're in very good shape financially.
The partnership agreement between the City of Sarasota and the Bay Park Conservancy clearly defines the roles that each of you have. Recently, that was amended. Could you talk more about what happened there?
The city and the Conservancy decided to move ahead with a second amendment to the partnership agreement because things were changing. Okay, what was changing? First, it looks like we have an opportunity to accelerate the design and planning and the construction of the park. Okay, we can, once we get Phase 1 done, we believe we can build park up the west coast from the Van Wezel to 10th Street and the so-called canal area, the boat launch area, and all the way up 41. In addition, we can begin to work on the new boat launch and the canal zone, which will have restaurants and retail. That'll be phases 2, 3, 4, but we can begin now. We've actually already begun the planning. So we're planning the next phases while we're building the first phase. So that's one reason that we wanted to relook at the partnership amendment. The second was, as we complete the first phase, for the first time, the Park Conservancy will be responsible for managing and operating part of the park. So after we build something, we're responsible for operating it. The city had proposed, and we had worked together on something called an implementation agreement, which governs operations, maintenance, all things like that. So we knew that was coming next summer. We wanted to get ahead of that. And the last piece is perhaps the most important. We believe together, if we got this new contract and partnership, if everything was in one place, that we could accelerate completion of the park by at least 5 years. And if we accelerate it by 5 years, we could save $20 to $30 million in capital and operating costs, which is a lot of money.
You know, it's interesting, I've walked the Mangrove Bayou Walkway, paddle launch, they're largely done. And it seems that every time I go down there, something has happened. It's phenomenal, the pace of this.
We're trying to move as fast as we can and still deliver on the design criteria, and frankly, still deliver with real quality and excellence, so that when you go, it's a fantastic park goer experience. But we've been very fortunate. Jason Swift has been a great construction partner. We have a whole bunch of subs, almost all from Sarasota City and Sarasota County. And we're a project they want to work on, so we've kept everybody in place. And as I said earlier, we have the money, right? So when you have a project that's approved, you have the plan in place, you have all the players that are going to execute the plan, and you have the money so they get paid. It's a project that people want to do.
Sure. A performing arts center is part of the Bay Master Plan, the Bay Park Master Plan, but you're not responsible for funding or operating that initiative. Have I got that right?
Yes. We recommended and designed and planned in the master plan, which was approved by the City Commission, that a place be held for a new performing arts center. And at the time the master plan was approved, I would say that was in discussion, but hadn't even reached the serious discussion or planning stage. As you know, the city owns and operates the Van Wezel Hall. It's managed by a city employee, Mary Wezel, and the city is working with the Van Wezel Foundation on a new Sarasota Performing Arts Center. So the simple way to think about it is the Park Conservancy, in partnership with the city, will do all of the horizontal land and water-based park creation. And the city and the Van Wezel Foundation will do all the planning, design, and ultimate approvals for a new performing arts center. We coordinate incredibly closely. We meet with the Van Wezel Foundation every 2 weeks. We meet with the city and the Van Wezel Foundation every month.
I can't thank you enough for kind of starting all this, the extraordinary work you've done and building a team here, and the hours you've put in. As you know, more than anybody, public-private partnerships depend on donations and volunteers. Volunteers is critical in this town. We are a town of volunteers. My question is, what motivates you? How did this happen? What are your thoughts on, I guess we'd call it your civic responsibility to this amazing project?
Well, first, this is a team effort and has been a team effort from the beginning, right? City, community. Second of all, you're so right. I mean, it's really the people and the volunteers that matter more, because if they start to get the ball rolling, I've always believed the money will follow a well-designed, well-planned civic initiative. And I guess the third thing, for me personally, I just looked at that 53 acres and said, golly, this has got to be the single biggest opportunity, not only in the city of Sarasota, but in the county and in the region. 53 acres of public land, the most valuable land in the city of Sarasota, which was, I hate to say it, but largely neglected, mostly a parking lot. So when you look at that, you say, oh my goodness, what could we transform this into for the benefit of not just the city, not just the quality of life for residents, but to bring the community together. And one thing I love about a public park, a really well-designed and well-built public park, is it becomes a gathering place. It's one of the few things, public libraries, maybe another, that are open, accessible, free, welcoming to the full and rich diversity of our community, now and for generations to come.
Parks are many things to many people. They can be a private place for quiet reflection or a way to connect with nature. But they are also a setting for events and experiences that bring communities together. Our next guest has the unique title of Chief Experience Officer, Jeannie Perales. Welcome, Jeannie. It's wonderful to have you. I'm down there a lot. I live nearby, and it seems like every day there's something that is opening. So what's the latest down there now?
Yeah, so we recently reopened our Bayou Bridge and the paddle launch. So that's big.
So you can take your kayak down there now?
You can, yeah. We have a space where you can launch a non-motorized boat or vessel. There's not a parking spot right now, but you can drop it off and then go park your car and come back. So we dredged the bayou of 3 feet of polluted silt, actually, and it's now this beautiful, healthy ecosystem.
What's the latest with this concession plaza? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, that's going to be a beautiful structure. Sweet Sparkman, a local architect, has designed it. And they've used some design principles that they took from the original Selby Library building, which of course later became Wezel. And so I think when you look at the angles of that old building and you look at the angles and the kind of graceful shape of the new shade structure that will go over the concession pavilion, you'll make some connections to those design principles. I think it'll be very beautiful and highly functional. It's going to be a pretty small space, just right around 1,000 square feet for public restrooms, water fountains, and then the concession pavilion itself. And then there'll be lots of seating under the shade structure.
And the view, as I understand and have seen, is spectacular.
It's going to be beautiful. Of course, it'll look down the Great Lawn or the Common Ground.
Right.
And at the very end of that, you're going to see a beautiful play structure, which is being designed and built especially for our space, and it'll be a pair of ibis birds. And kids can climb between them, and there's a slide and all kinds of fun things to do. And then, of course, the water's right there.
Sure. That's exciting. So what's on the menu for 2022?
So much. We're going to open a park for one. That's very exciting. So right now, if you look at our list of city and county parks, we're not actually on the list because we're not officially a city park yet. So when we open phase 1 in late summer, early fall, we will be officially a park for the city of Sarasota. So that's very exciting. And then just so many other things. So we are planning a whole soft opening sequence. So all summer we'll have lots of different events and programs going on just to build audience and build excitement and give people a reason to come to the park, check it out, and see the progress being made. And then we'll do a grand opening in the fall.
That's where I met you on the lawn, where I first met you when they had the band there, and you're going to have more performances there, outdoor activities to draw people there.
That's right. Every Sunday we do from 2 to 3 a free concert, and it's on Civic Green, which is the newly renovated lawn just north of the Municipal Auditorium.
It sounds like you're working, you're reaching out and working with other entities in the community to lend their name to what's going on here, and they want to be part of this amazing park.
We're so lucky in Sarasota. We have so many cultural organizations that that offer performances and experiences, and they really like to get out there, and they also like to have a free space to do it. We've got lots of walkers, bikers, joggers, hopefully soon paddlers, and of course boaters at the north end with the Canal District. But then there are lots of people who like to have sort of calendared, structured programs as well. So we offer yoga a couple times a week. We do free nature tours on Wednesday mornings, and then all of these concerts. And
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The 2021 Park Visitors Survey really provided some comprehensive feedback. Tell me a little bit about that, how that came out.
Yeah, so this past summer we collected more than 2,600 survey results, which was pretty good actually because it was the summertime. So we feel like we got a lot of locals. We of course collected demographic information, zip codes and whatnot. So we got mostly locals that participated in it. We got just tons of feedback. We provided a set of questions, of course, and we offered a variety of activities and programs that that parks might typically offer. And so we had responses there, and there were some things that were very predictable answers, like we knew people were going to want to walk, bike, jog, and bring their dogs, right? But there were some things that were a little surprising, and people wrote in suggestions as well, and one of the biggest write-ins was to make sure we had play spaces for children. And then the other thing that I think was interesting, and my children are 4th generation here, so I grew up in this community. I'm raising my kids in this community, and I'm seeing a demographic shift.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
That's what you're accommodating for.
Exactly. And it was really interesting because the respondents skewed much younger than what I thought they would. So I think it's just we want to be responsive to the community that exists today and that will exist in 10, 20, 30 years, and that's what we're designing for. And so actually we have the results up on our website under our resources.
Ask, where do we
Yeah, so there's on our website there's a tab. If you click on that, it says resources, and then you can click on visitor survey results, and it gives kind of a visual breakdown of the responses. So since we operate in the sunshine, everything that we do is posted on our website, so anyone can go on there and check it out.
Well, it's an extensive website because it's an extensive project. Just wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeannie.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne.
What a positive, exciting attitude Jeannie has. Her enthusiasm for this project is contagious. Don't hesitate to reach out to her. I know she would love to hear from you. Our final guest is another inspirational person. Bill Waddell, Chief Implementation Officer. He's a certified planner, a landscape architect, and he's worked on Siesta Key Park and Riverwalk in Bradenton. But he'd be the first to tell you, implementing this park is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Welcome, Bill. It's so great to see you again.
Thank you, you too. Great to be here.
I'm going to start with what an exciting time we're in right now with the Bay Conservancy. The guiding principles of the Bay Park Conservancy: environmental and ecological responsibility. Tell us what is being done to restore and protect not only the bayou, the mangroves, the coastline, along all 52 acres that you have.
Absolutely. You know, I always say that job one is building a great park for all in our community, but right behind it is doing an amazing job to restore the environment and to protect our precious bay from all the polluted runoff that has run into it for decades. And so there are a lot of things that we're doing, and a lot of it, quite frankly, gets buried under the ground, under the park, and you wouldn't know it's there if we don't talk about it and we put some signage and whatever. But a lot of interesting things. Certainly we're doing things that people are probably familiar with: bioswales, which are basically shallow depressions that we landscape and put stormwater in, and so the ground and the plants pre-treat the stormwater before it, goes into the bayou, or mangrove bayou and the bay. We've got a few stormwater ponds, but we've got some very unique things that we've done that our team has come up with. One of them is called a baffle box. We've got a couple of those, and they are very large, 10 by 10 by 12 foot concrete structures that have filters in them, and basically we cut a section of pipe out, insert the filter, and this dirty stormwater comes in, and then it's clean on the other side. And so there's a couple places we're doing that. The state of Florida gave us a grant for one of them. They're about $350,000 each, but they do an amazing job.
Each baffle box?
Each baffle box, that's right. And one of them that we've installed, we put in with a glass top on it, so people can look down in it and see the treatment train that it goes through, and then see the clean water going into the bayou on the downstream side. And so that's pretty amazing. We've also got what's called a denitrification trench, which is a 600-foot long trench, about 8 by 8, down at the groundwater, filled with a carbon media, and we push the stormwater into it, the dirty stormwater, and that carbon media neutralizes the nitrogen. Nitrogen's the biggest problem we have in our bay. And then the groundwater takes that clean water into the mangrove bayou and out into the bay. And so that's pretty amazing. And then the last thing that we did, while we're treating new stormwater that comes in, several 100 million gallons a year, by the way, of polluted stormwater have been draining from the site and from adjacent US 41 into the bay for decades. And so we found out, our team discovered that there was 3 feet or so of polluted silt down in the bottom of the mangrove bayou, the old coastal wetland that exists there. And so we got a permit from the state and the feds. We dredged it out. We put it into bags up on the site, which basically squeeze the water out, the clean water out. And then we take that silt, we tested it, and it was high in certain pollutants. Arsenic was one of them, and it was too high for us to use on the site. So we hauled it to a landfill in Apopka, and we've restored better tidal flow into the coastal wetland. And so our team expects it to start healing itself, which is really cool. So first, stop the pollutants from entering the system, and then second, clean up the old pollutants and give nature a chance to recover.
Wow. You're Chief Implementation Officer. One of your jobs is to bring your vision to reality. So one of the resources you've used is a 2021 Park Visitor Survey. Talk about that a little bit, what that was all about.
Sure. Well, I think from the beginning, our team has worked really hard at asking the community what they wanted to see on this 53 acres, and then sharing with them alternatives for master plan and design, and now executing, implementing these alternatives. And that sort of community support laid a really strong foundation. And we compare all of the designs to what we heard from the community, from our guiding principles, and execute. And so I think that has really helped us gain momentum, and the momentum that we're at now. But it's important that we continue to listen. And so now that we're getting close to having our first 10-acre phase open, we've done a survey and asked the community, what would you like to see? What would bring you out, and what would you like to see in this first piece of park that we open? It also will inform, we're already working on the next couple of phases. And so what we learn in our first phase will apply to design and implementation in our future phases. So as we move along, we're building the park that our community wants to see and wants to come use. But I'll tell you, when we did our initial surveys, always at the top of what we heard from our community was the amount of land that's available along the water in our community continues to shrink. And so we want to get by the water, on the water, come from the water. And so we're doing a lot of design work and execution work to get folks out to the water and over the water to watch our amazing sunsets and just experience, this amazing piece of property.
Speaking of land use, there are a couple of looming uncertainties. The Van Wezel and the Sarasota Orchestra. The Van Wezel is economically unsustainable, and it's below sea level. I know there's a lot more to that. The orchestra is threatening to leave town and indicated they don't want to be a part of the Performing Arts Center. So, what is the contingency plan with this land?
Well, the city, everything that we build in this park, we build on behalf of the city, and then we donate the asset to the city. And then our partnership agreement allows us to maintain it and operate, a park with excellence. But the Van Wezel is no different. The Van Wezel is the city's asset. The Van Wezel is embarking with that foundation on a vision to build a new performing arts center, state-of-the-art, on higher ground in the park. And then because the existing hall is the city's asset, they've talked about creating some sort of a blue ribbon committee to evaluate how to repurpose that building. We have some time to figure that out. That'll be, again, the city leading that process. But certainly a new hall would be the cultural centerpiece of this great park that we're working on. In terms of the orchestra, they've got a long-term lease on the site. And so they, quite frankly, it's between the orchestra and their management and the city as to whether they stay on the site in the city or move. For now, we have got a master plan that reflects them relocating as what they've said their desires are, but we've also got a contingency master plan that reflects that building staying.
Two final questions. So, what are the greatest known threats to the achievement of the master plan, and what do you hope that the legacy will have for future generations?
A couple of big questions. I would say, the challenges on big initiatives like this, often what makes things head south is if you haven't done a good job of listening to the community and understanding what they want. I feel like we've done a really good job of that, so I feel like we have a good sense of what our community would like to see. So I don't think that will be an issue. Certainly funding can always be an issue. We've got a park that's going to be $100 to $150 million when it's built out in the next 8 to 10 years. There can be recessions, and so there can be issues that slow down the timeline for which money's available. But honestly, we're ahead of schedule on our fundraising. We're building most of our first phase with philanthropy, and we've got the money in place, cash and commitments to build that first phase with philanthropy. And then we continue to work really hard on local, state, federal grants and appropriations to provide us the public funding that we need to keep going. Quite frankly, one of the advantages we have with the public park is that we can build this. We're planning on 2, 3, maybe 4 phases. But if something happens and the money's not there, we can do it in 5 phases over a longer period of time. We can adjust and build it as we go. And so, honestly, I feel very good about where we are with the initiative. I think the legacy of turning this into this property into a great park is sort of twofold. One, restoring the environment in a way that leaves our stretch of the bay cleaner than how we found it and lets nature heal itself. And then 2, creating an incredible public park where many generations of our community for many years to come can bring their families and enjoy the water and enjoy being together. With the pandemic, I've heard a lot about the importance of outdoor space and public space, and so the fact that we can deliver an amazing public park for families to come and enjoy, I'm really proud to be a part of that.
Well said, Bill. Inspirational words for an inspirational project. The course for this year and next are clearly taking shape. After that, well, the horizon is a bit hazy. Yes, we have an aspirational vision, we have brilliant leadership and volunteers, and we have significant philanthropic resources. But we also have a habit of putting private development ahead of public parks and the environment. Let's hope future city and county commissioners stick with the plan. For more information on the Bay Park Conservancy and upcoming events on the Bay, go to these links. And you can always watch this episode and all our previous episodes on my website, YouTube, and Facebook pages. Well, that wraps up another one. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm Suzanne Atwell, and I'll see you around town.
Atwell Media is a registered, not-for-profit 501c3. If you would like to support local public service programming like this, please visit our website, suzanneatwell.org, to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for watching.